Calling all government acquisition professionals. Stop describing your requirement the wrong way. Believe it or not, the way you define what you actually want and describe it has a huge impact on the outcome. And if you do it the wrong way, it'll drive up costs, stifle innovation, and give you ultimately a bad outcome. Now you may wonder why we're in front of this bridge here. Stick around, you'll find out. Okay, so let's talk about work statements. Now, in this video, we're really going to talk about work statements for services, contracting for services. Services are becoming a lot more prevalent, and a lot of the challenges of requirement definition are becoming more related to services. So there's three types of work statements that we're going to talk about. Let's look at the definitions. And as always, let's look at the definitions in the FAR. So I'm going to FAR Part 2, which is the part that you have your fun definitions. And let's start by looking at the statement, well, let's do the performance work statement. All right, so going over to P. Okay, here we go. Performance work statement. So a performance work statement means a statement of work for performance-based acquisitions that describes the required results in clear, specific, and objective terms with measurable outcomes. Okay, so statement of work is actually nowhere in the FAR, but usually what a statement of work is defined as is it's a type of work statement that talks about how the services should be done. So you'll see in this performance work statement, it doesn't describe the how. The idea is on the results. You're looking at the results, not the how. You leave it up to industry to explain the how. Notice too, though, even with the PWS, it's got to be clear, specific, and objective. Measurable outcomes. All right. So let's look at a statement of objectives. Statement of objectives means a government-prepared document incorporated into the solicitation that states the overall performance objectives. Used in solicitations when the government intends to provide the maximum flexibility to each offerer to propose an innovative approach. Notice in this definition, a SOW is not actually a work statement. What a SOW is doing is it's asking industry to provide a work statement. And all the government's doing is saying, hey, we've got these objectives. Why don't you tell us how you think you should do it? Okay, so to summarize, so a statement of work, the most specific, most restrictive type of work statement. The government is explaining exactly how a service needs to be done. Performance work statement is more performance-based. Key word there is measurable outcomes. We're not explaining how we want things to be done, but we are still being very specific about the results that we want. And then we give industry some flexibility on the how. And then finally, the most flexible, not even a work statement, it's put in solicitations, it's called a statement of objectives, and it's basically stating our problem, what our objective, what we want done, and then industry provides the work statement themselves. All right, so let's talk about some practical applications so you can really see how the difference between these three things. A lot of people call everything a SOW, so let's really make sure that we understand the differences. I like this example of a bridge. We'll use bridges. So let me just draw this out here. If we do like a suspension bridge, you can't see this. You can't see any of this. All right, hold on. One second. Okay, got some good materials. All right, let's get far out about this, which means far. All right, we're going to start with the SOW. Again, a SOW is a statement of work, not a female pig. So in a SOW, well, let's use a use case where, let's say for this scenario, the government needs to go from point A to point B, and let's say there's this river, right, that flows in between point A to point B. So what a SOW would do was not only just provide that objective, but say, in order to get from point A to point B, contractor must create a specific kind of suspension bridge. The bridge needs to have a particular length and width and breadth, Specific materials need to be specified, right? Needs to be a particular color, how many lanes. It even gets into the specifics of resources. How many people are going to be on the job? When do they need to start working? What are the work hours? So in this scenario, the government is really just calling the shots on everything. They're explaining exactly how they need to go from point A to point B. And so the responses coming back doesn't give industry a lot of wiggle room. They have, even down to the material, they have to choose a particular kind of steel. So the simple part about a statement of work is when you get your proposals in, it's a pretty easy job because you're going to not just be getting apples to apples, but almost the same exact apples are going to be compared. And then you can just go down to something like price. The downside is that even if the industry has another idea, maybe a more cost-effective idea, an innovative idea, they can't because they have to follow the specifications exactly. That's a SOW. All right, let's go to performance-based acquisition. As defined, in case you're interested, in FAR Part 37. And the work statement of performance-based acquisition is a PWS, performance work statement. And so, in a scenario where you need to go from point A to point B, government still writes a work statement, okay? Still have to get from point A to point B, but they're not going to explain how. Now, they can still say, contractor needs to create a bridge, but they won't say how to create that bridge, right? So a measurable outcome can still be the bridge. Because remember, the FAR definition. In a PWS, you still have to be specific about your results that you want. But you're just explaining results. You're not really going into the materials. You're giving a lot more flexibility for offers. Now, because the results are still the same, the outcomes are still the same for every proposal, you're still going to be measuring apples to apples, but really it's going to be different kinds of apples. Let me get one here, maybe a big one. Yeah, there you go. So different kinds of apples to apples. So a little bit more room for variety, a little bit more room for innovation, a little bit more room for competition, because up here, right, there may only be a couple companies that can do exactly this. So you're bringing in more companies with the PWS. You're lowering costs a little bit because this apple may actually be a lot less costly. So PWS provides a little bit more flexibility by, again, focusing on the fact that we just need a bridge. All right, let's talk about the SOO, or Statement of Objectives. In the Statement of Objectives, we got our river here, all right? We got point A to point B, and we got the need to go from point A over to point B, and really that's the focus. So in a statement of objective, you're not even saying a bridge. You're saying government needs to go from point A to point B, industry. You have any ideas? And again, remember that with a statement of objectives different from the SOW and the PWS, it's technically not a work statement. It is a solicitation for industry to give the government a work statement. And you could have all kinds of ideas here. So one idea may be, let's say maybe one offerer proposes to build this kind of gondola kind of thing, right? Here's a little gondola. It's a lift that takes you down there over the river. Maybe one offerer, this is an entrance here, maybe an exit here, and then maybe there's a tunnel that goes under the river, right? And they say, you know what, forget the river. We want a lot of boats to go back and forth. Let's do a tunnel underneath. Maybe one really crazy offer will have a justification for, boom, right? Creating a cannon that'll shoot a car out. There's the car going fast across the river, right? Lots of different proposals could come in. And this is why this is so important for emerging technology. If the government doesn't know what this looks like, right, in the statement of work, or even they don't even know, they have an idea that it's going to be a bridge, but they're not sure. This invites the most innovative ideas, because look at all these different ways you can go across the river. All right, but the challenging part about this, which can make the government's job a lot harder, is it's not comparing to apples anymore. It may not even be comparing apples to oranges. It could be apples to, draw my best pineapple, right? And you can do a grape. Apples to different kinds of fruit. And maybe you'll even see a completely different kind of fruit, like this guy. What's this? New fruit. Right? Bunch of new ideas. But what this could potentially do is, one, increase competition, because then you got a whole bunch of companies, including non-traditional companies, that can provide an idea for your problem of getting from point A to point B, but it could lower costs by getting cost-effective ideas, and it can increase innovation. This is the beauty of a statement of objectives over, say, a very specific restrictive statement of work. Okay, so that's one example. Let's do one more example so you really get the distinction between these three types of work statements. So, let me get a clean slate. Oh, look at this. This must have come with the pad. The store must have provided this. You know what? I think I can work with this. Get a little closer. We'll work with this. All right, let's look at coffee. Let's say there's a contract for coffee. Okay, so this is an example of a work, kind of like a work breakdown structure. And let's say this is a work breakdown structure for a statement of work. Okay? Now, usually statements of work will start with the objective, at least they should, right? Because this is the whole point of everything down below. What's the mission? What's the objective? So the objective of morning coffee runs is that we want to be alert every morning, right? The government needs to be alert every morning. Okay, that's the objective. So then it moves on to, sometimes they're called general tasks or specific tasks. So the general task or outcome, right, is that we want morning coffee runs. Contractor needs to come in, give us morning coffee runs so that we are alert every morning. Okay, but then here's the how. How are they going to do these morning coffee runs? Well, we want a specific Kenya blend, a specific blend from Kenya. We want them to use the Starbucks on 45th Street. And we want them to have two people to get the coffee, maybe one to buy the coffee, the other to keep the door open, right? Okay, so very restrictive specifications on the how to get the morning coffee because we need to be alert every morning. What a PWS would do is say, forget the how, right? Because we can get in trouble by specifying particular types of coffee. When we start getting into the specific materials, and this is where we can also run into on the front page about $1,000 toilet seats and $300 hammers. Okay, also there's a restriction on Starbucks on 45th. What if the Starbucks on 45th is blocked up all the time? What if it takes like long lines outside the building? Well, if it says it on the statement of work, it's what the contractor's going to do. Do we really need two people? Do they really need to be full-time employees, right? So what the performance work statement will do was, you know what? They'll say, forget about the how. You guys figure out a more efficient way to do this. Our general outcome is that we just need coffee every morning. That's it, right? Okay, so remember that this and this, these are still work statements. So the government's still providing the work statement. What a statement of objectives will do in their solicitation is just say this. We need to be alert every morning. Forget coffee, forget how we think it should be done. And this is where you could get proposals that don't suggest coffee. You could get proposals that say you just take one pill every year and you're going to be wide awake every morning the way the pill releases the whatever, right? That way there's no extra work every day, which lowers down costs. So again, an example of how a statement of objectives can actually increase innovation, lower costs, and increase competition. All right, acquisition friends, that wraps up this video. Hopefully you found it helpful. And remember, when you are describing your service requirement, think about competition, think about innovation, think about cost. Until next time. Oh, that was a $300 government-issued pen.